Hello, sir, listeners and judges. This is the Now You're Playing With podcast. My name is Chris.
And my name is Tatton.
And the premise of our show is we're two 30-something gamers. We're more retro enthusiasts than the modern gamer, so we're pretty jaded and curmudgeonly, but, we're C9 and we're proud.
The episode we have for today, also the entry for the Pod U contest, is going to cover our war stories from the trenches of video game stores. For today's episode, we're joined by my wife Rebecca and our friend Cory. We've all spent some time working in different computer stores, video game stores, mom and pop shops, corporate environments, and we have all come together to bring our best horror stories.
Pretty fucking entertaining, so sit back and enjoy the podcast.
Now you're playing with podcast.
So we're back after a delay, and we're now at Cory's home, so now we can talk more freely about customers without worrying customers coming in.
Right, yeah. I really didn't want to...
We don't want more stories to add to
Well, and some of my stories are totally not work appropriate, for sure.
Yeah.
Even though they happened at work, they were not work appropriate.
So you might hear the occasional cat on the table, the snacks being opened, all that kind of stuff. But
all the important stuff.
We're not professionals, so fuck you.
Yeah. Some serious hardcore chugging of our
Speaking of fuck you were telling me one time about this game that
I've got a good one.
Yeah.
So legend from basically the district managers when I was working at a specific stop would get let each other know all their great stories, and this is one of the great ones from not a store that I worked at, but basically somebody came in to return a copy of Super Mario, and they basically they took the cart, they put it down on the counter, and they were like, my son can't play this, it is full of profanity.
Now this was the Game Boy version of
this
Game Boy Color.
This is Super Mario Brothers Deluxe for the Game Boy Color.
Right.
I'm terrified
already. And so the manager's like, there is no profanity in any Mario game ever. There's never been anything questionable other than Birdo. There's nothing. There's nothing bad. There's nothing naughty.
Some people would say sunshine. Water sports.
Oh.
Okay, sorry.
Rom pom pom. So the lady's like, no, I assure you that there's profanity in this game. And he's like, okay, we're gonna put it in and we're gonna look at it. Apparently it was a hacked cartridge, because when he put it in, the startup screen was like Mario flipping the bird, and it said, fuck you.
I don't think it was hacked. I thought that was the game that you could make your own messages for the Game Boy printer.
Oh, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, so some stupid 12-year-old, that's something
and
that
traded it in.
And traded it in.
And it was legit, because he put it in and was like, yeah, no, we'll totally give you your money back.
So it wasn't, I've never heard of
I need to get in there and...
Yeah, I need to go back to my store and find all the copies of that one and change them. So.
You need to change them, but you need to change them to things that people won't understand.
Right. Yeah.
Or some sort of like.
You could do the played out zombies zombie invasion stuff.
Or
just do it. Just do Sonic the Hedgehog.
It got Battletoads.
I don't want to make it look like a
Battletoads.
Yeah. So
I only make fun of Sonic because Chris loves Sega so much. So.
I've lost a lot of my passion for Sega, so I like the classics. So
I mean, come on, you didn't love the Werehog.
No, I didn't care for the gun-toting Shadow either, so...
I haven't played that game.
No. So, trade-ins, you were telling me how you ended up with a copy of, what was it, one of those rare PS1 RPGs.
Oh, actually, I've got it over there. I can show you if you're at all interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had it was at the first store, and this guy, we've seen him in there before. He's real, I don't know, the guys that are dumpster divers. And I didn't even understand dumpster diving at this point in time, so I had only been working there for a while, and David and I were there a little late, and we'd already closed the register. It was a Sunday, so it was like 7 o'clock, and this guy rides up on his bike and starts knocking on the door. I'm like, David, do not open that door for that guy. And he was like, no, hold on. I'm like, David, you're too fucking nice. And I was like, whatever.
He's too fucking nice.
So, yeah, he is too fucking nice. So he opens the door, and the guy's like, oh, I got this stuff, man. I really need to get some money. I rode my bike all the way up here from campus and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, God, David, you're such a fucking idiot. And I see the guy start pulling stuff out of his bag, and it's like, EverQuest, expansions. And I'm like, oh, God, this is useless. And then David goes, hey, Cory, would you be interested in this? And he holds out a sealed copy of Persona 1. And I was like... Which, if you know me, I'm a pretty big...
Are you good poker face?
This was the first real test of my first poker face. Like, I was like, yes, David, I would be interested in that. And the guy was like, really? You like these old things? I was like, yeah, they're all right. I'll give you something for it, And he was like, well, how much? And I was like, $10. And he was like, what? Really? For that? And I was like, yeah. He's like, wait, how much would the store give me? I was like, about the same, which is true. But... and I was like, yeah, I'll give you $10, man. And so I gave the dude $10, and then David's like, what about this one? And it was Persona 2 that had, it wasn't sealed. It wasn't sealed at all, but...
Oh, you fucking snob.
Yeah. Well, I don't care about sealed. That kills me that I have a sealed copy of that game in there, and I have another copy of it without a manual. And I'm like... But either way, it's Persona 2, and I was like, well, he was like, you want that one too? I was like, yeah, but it's not sealed still. I'll give you $5 for it. And he was like, deal. So at the time, Persona was going for $110 on Amazon and eBay. So that was probably a $400. Like, it's not worth that anymore, but it was pretty spectacular to get that snag. And then the best part about that story actually is that guy, I was like, where did he get this from? There's no way, because like I said, I didn't know he was a dumpster diver at the time. I just knew he was dirty. And and later on, I was at my house and I was getting ready to take trash out, and I looked in the back, and that guy was in his van digging stuff out of our dumpster. And I was like, all right, I see how you get that. So I was like, he's actually behind my house too.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy. I had, when I was working at our campus store, I actually had a guy bring in stuff that I had thrown away to trade
Who the hell is throwing out sealed copies of Persona 1?
No, that's the real question, yeah.
Which is a good question.
Well, maybe like your story with getting your two-row duo, maybe it was just somebody who was evicted or...
Yeah, that's the thing.
left the apartment with stuff in it.
Yeah.
Trade-in wise, we had worked for Rumpke, would come in his Rumpke outfit. So legitimately, the trash. This is a trash, a worker, a sanitation worker, would come in and bring us systems with, nothing in them. And they're always broken, and they're always filled with maggots. And literally, he would bring us in stuff. We go to turn it on, and things would crawl out of it. And eventually, we got to the point where it's like, we can no longer invest in this.
Yeah.
Because you're infesting our store.
Yeah. The cockroach smell is very familiar to me.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know the cockroach smell until I worked at our store.
Oh, sure.
You smell once you recognize that smell, then you kind of know right away, which is a good thing because if you're just starting out on one of these jobs and you notice this odor,
you have to learn.
You will learn this odor
the hard way.
Yeah, and the good thing is once you know it, then you don't have to further inspect, and you don't have to find eggs or dead ones or whatever. You know the smell. You can immediately begin your politeness things like, well, we might have too many of these in stock. I don't think we're buying these right now.
Yeah.
Or some bullshit.
I took in an infested Wii, and I didn't know it, and it was the first time those particular customers had come into our store, and it was at the time where Wiis were scarce, so I was happy to get a Wii, and I was like, this thing's dirty, and it smells weird. I don't know what's wrong with it. But yeah, I ended up taking that and putting it in a bag, and putting roach killing powder in the bag and sealing it up and putting it in the back. And we've had multiple infestations because of customers.
Oh, sure.
Well, and plus you got a Chinese restaurant next to you, at least that one location. I remember when we first opened, there was a mouse that ran in through there. But it's a video game store. You don't put food in there, so you're not going to get mice. You have to blame your neighbors. At least you can do that.
Yeah. Well, actually, the place that used to be next door to us, we found out was a front. That used to be the bread company.
Oh, the bread. Okay.
Yeah. No. Before they were there, we found out that one of the ex-employees there was like, "Yeah, I was working there, and I wondered why we made all this bread and it never went anywhere." He was like, it would just disappear, and the guy fled the country.
Wow.
And yeah, I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. We probably had some sort of laundering business like right next door to us. And we didn't know about it.
Well, we've got see, that's the thing. There's a story I want to tell, but I'm leaving that towards the end. So as for restaurants next door, that is a last.
Okay.
But
well, you talk about the Wii shortage back in the 06, 07 time. I remember I wasn't there when we bought it, but this Wii that the store had was totally beat to shit. You know, the doors were broken off, the game was missing, the nunchuck was missing. It was, I don't know if it was damaged. I mean, it wasn't something you want to sell to people. Mm-hmm. So the store had it, but we were using it as a demo unit. You know, that makes sense. So this lady comes in. I don't know if it was around Christmas time or not. I don't know if he was working with you or it was with Tracy or David or who it was. But
I didn't work much with you.
Right, because that was when my wife was pregnant, or maybe it was during the election, or so, I don't. It was some reason I stopped working there because basically when my wife got pregnant, I kind of stopped hanging around you guys and working.
Yeah.
Well, it was my second job. I had a real job.
Right. Yeah.
And I worked at the game store part time just for access to good stuff.
Right. Like Snatcher.
The things men do for Snatcher.
Rum pum pum.
I'll be here all night. But so we have this Wii, and this woman comes in, and she's kind of pushy about buying it. And like I said, we have this Wii, but it's not in great shape. It's not really for sale. And she kind of insists, yeah, I'll buy it. So we sell it to her. You know, we give her a pretty good discount. They were going for $250 at the time. I think we sold it for $150. Mm-hmm. You know, pretty damn good deal. And if you're desperate for a system, it's great. We were friends with the guys down at the GameStop a mile down the road.
Yeah.
And they come in like a week or so later, and they tell us that same woman come in and were bitching about us selling a crappy Wii.
I was working there then. Yeah.
She was like, well, at least you're not Game Store that sold us this crappy Wii. Like, fuck you, lady.
You pushed for it.
God, really? I mean, I'm glad I don't work in retail anymore. I'm glad I don't work in retail anymore. I'm glad I don't work in retail anymore.
So there was a GameStop close to us when I was working in the mall, and It was during the time of the Battletoads thing, where everybody was calling up the GameStops. And one of the girls that worked down at that GameStop called me up, and she's crying to me like, oh, they're so mean, and they're awful, and be careful because they'll call you up. And I got a call one day, and they were like, do you have Battletoads? And I was like, what system do you need it for? Because right now I've got it for the Genesis, and I've got Battletoads and Battlemaniacs, and I've got it for the NES, and I've got it for the Game Gear. Which one did you want it for, and what do you want me to put it? And they're just like, click.
Yeah, I had one of those moments too. It was you guys have Battletoads? I was like, yep. They're like, okay. It's like,
you
I don't know what you want.
That's the thing. And so what we ended up doing was I ended up giving them, like, I took store credit, got them a copy of Battletoads, and gave it to them down there, and they kept it behind.
I remember that store. They kept it over their counter. That was pretty funny.
Actually,
a GameStop with a sense of humor.
Yeah, so whenever they called, it's like, yeah, we've got a copy, but we're not going to sell it to you. Click.
Yeah, one of the terrible people who will remain nameless from the GameStop up the street from our other store had they got a copy of it from our store and put it up there, and they marked it at like $9,999, which I thought was pretty good.
Gold.
So, yep.
It was great.
Yeah.
We had another one of those legends that came down from managers of other stores. So there was a kid who came in and got a copy of Need for Speed Underground for the PlayStation 2. And brought it back a couple days later saying that it didn't work in his system. So manager, good guy, went ahead. Kid was a constant customer, had his receipt, it was complete, so he went ahead and exchanged it. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So went ahead and exchanged it. Kid comes back 2 days later, says that it doesn't work. Manager gets another copy out and is like, okay, well, we'll try this. If it doesn't work again, definitely we'll see. You need to see what's going on with your system. Manager, just as a whim, goes ahead and opens the case and goes, I cannot return this game. What did you do? And the kid was like, well, there were little scratches on it, so I wanted to melt those out, so I put it in the microwave. And the thing was, if you put a disc in the microwave, you get like little crackles in it.
Yeah.
It was black and bubbly. I don't know how long you left it in. But,
I mean, 5 seconds should do it.
So,
For everybody taking notes at home, 5 seconds in the microwave.
You know
will
what?
fix
The
any
two
dish.
crimes that should be capital punishment: burning microwave popcorn at work
yes.
and putting your video games in the microwave. Or
Oh my
babies.
God. And the kid was just like, I don't understand why you won't take... This will never work again. You fried it. You're lucky you didn't start a fire. We kind of wish you would have blown yourself up. Yeah, he was... And he was a card, because basically what we had in that area was we had 3 stores all within a mile of each other, which was nice. It was... No, and it ended up
3
being...
GameStops within a mile of each other?
3 GameStops that were all within a mile
I guess,
of
yeah.
each other, and then when they acquired the EB, we had 4! So we had 2 in the same mall,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous.
Which still
That's
exists.
common.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd get out of some of those leases after 5 years, but
They ended up closing mine. Mine was one of the first early. It was really one of the early GameStops. It was a Sawtooth store. So the way it was set up was, you've got the ridiculous sawtooth. It's not, flush on the wall. And we would have kids who would go back there and, try to steal stuff. So I had this one kid come in one day, and he's got his, Abercrombie and Fitch sexy person on this bag, comes in, and as he's going to walk out, his bag is glowing green. I mean, really, just the greenest of green. And so I stop him. And, I'm assistant manager. The manager's standing there, and I stop him. I'm like, hey, can I see what's in your bag? And it's full of Xbox stuff. And so, we're pulling the Xbox stuff out, and he grabs the bag and he runs. And so the manager's like, no, dude, you gotta, just stop. We need to get the rest of the stuff out of there, and I'll let you go. And so he gets the rest of the stuff out of there, and he lets the kid go. And it's like, really? This kid needed
this is supposed to be a good show. This isn't supposed to be a downer.
Well,
I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Well, okay. All right, fine.
Okay.
So catering to people in my store. In my store, when I was running the show at my little swap, got used to the customers, had a lot of repetitive, repeat customers that I loved. And you'd have the assholes who'd come in, and then you'd have the repeat customers that you can come in and talk to. And had a couple people that would come in, and, when we had time, we'd, grab a pack of Magic, they'd grab a pack of Magic, and, we'd play cards against each other, just right there. Ended up meeting Chris at GameSwap because he came down to, enjoy checking out Cincinnati video game stores.
I brought you a husband, so
Yeah,
what do I get in store credit for that? Can I get a $10 copy of Persona?
Oh.
I couldn't get that Tactics Ogre from you. That was sad times.
Oh.
That was the one that was listed on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't...
That's okay. I got a pretty good deal on all the other stuff.
Well, I tried it... that was the thing,
Yeah, you were like, that one's on Amazon. I can't do anything.
I can't do that. Well, no, one of the trade-ins that we ended up getting, so at the Florence store, somebody came in with a box of sealed Saturn games. And it's not just sealed Saturn, it's sports games, fuck that. No. Panzer Dragoon Saga, Saturn Bomberman. I mean, these are the two...
Yeah. I may remember this story, actually.
So
at least I know how it ends.
Alright, so the Saturn Bomberman I ended up picking up for myself.
Do you still have it?
Yeah. It's still
Is it still sealed?
It's still sealed.
Bastards.
I know, I'm an asshole.
I want a copy.
We have the one I brought with me. No, we had the one you had.
Yeah, we had my disc
I ended up
one.
trading my disc in and then going ahead and putting towards and getting my sealed one. But Panzer Dragoon Saga. So we're gonna put Panzer Dragoon Saga online, listed online for $500 because it's new and it's sealed and it's the only one out there because nobody else has it. Nothing going on there.
Hi, Cat.
Kitty.
And so we go ahead and we put it online and brings the games over. And in the process of bringing them over, he cracked the case for a sealed copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga.
He should have been punched in the mouth for that.
It's just like, okay, so you just...
His story was punched in the mouth.
It's true, because, it's turning that around. I don't remember if we were able to sell that guy. I don't remember what happened to that guy.
Yeah.
I think that disappeared after I left.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty sexy.
And actually, so here's the fantastic side story to that. Which
Welcome to the
nothing do with
conversation, Mr.
working at a
Tatton.
store.
Yes.
One of the things that Chris and I like to do, and Becky and I like to do now, is we love to go into a chain that we have here, which is called Buybacks, which used to be
They're regional, nationwide,
CD
almost.
Warehouse, yeah. And it's a place that doesn't really know video games. They use TAMS, and they just
Explain
whatever.
what TAMS is.
Yeah, TAMS is a system that you use. It's a POS system for video game stores, so it like runs your cash register and everything. But it you as you take in your trade, it tells you like what you should pay for it and what to sell it for based on what it is on Amazon.
Right. You run your own parameters, but it's for anything that's on Amazon, and you can run your own parameters, but it bases the averages off of Amazon prices.
And what's great about buybacks is most of the people in buybacks don't know what video games are, so they just blindly believe whatever
That's because
TAMS says.
most of the people from buybacks get fired at like a weekly basis. The campus store, before it got shut down, had multiple complete wipes of their employees.
Mm-hmm.
They would fire manager down and rehire all the
I don't know
so
that
you're
they
getting
cared, yeah.
you're getting garbage people there.
Well,
Anyways.
and the prices are ridiculous there. I mean, you're going to see copies of... Give me something that's fairly common that they were selling for billions of dollars.
Well, they had like 14 copies of the Legend of Zelda, like the collector's edition disc for the GameCube, and they were selling all of them at one time for like $97. So they had like 14 of these for $97. You could go to GameStop and get it for like $35.
Right, and if you ask them if they would bring the price down, they would say no.
Yeah, they'd say
they
no.
can't.
They'd
Yeah,
say,
they can't.
No, our prices are locked. Like, this is our price. So the fun game that Chris and I have is we like to go in there and find the most stupid, ridiculous, overpriced thing we can find. And it's a great game. It's fun. It's a blast. I love it. So we kept going into this one that we had local, and they had a copy of Panzer Dragoon Saga for $474 open. And we were like, what on earth is possessing them to sell this for $474?
It's
well,
me!
It was Becky. It listed the only copy on Amazon for $500.
It's a deal.
That is pretty
What
funny.
a butterfly flaps its wings.
Oh man, yeah. The TAMS because our store uses TAMS, but TAMS isn't absolute garbage if you manipulate it properly and if you have your margins set right. And that's the problem; their margins are not set right. I also like to point out that they buy all of their games, Dreamcast and back, for $1. Mm-hmm. So that Panzer Dragoon Saga they bought for $1 and then put out on the floor at $479.
That's like a 5,000%.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like,
That's
and
ridiculous.
it's crazy. Yeah, all their classic stuff. I don't feel right ever buying anything from there because that margin.
But then again, I get they've got like $1 box there. I've picked up. I mean,
you got me Streets of Rage 3 there for $1.99.
Yeah.
So,
You can never. I mean, even GameStop. As much as everybody hates GameStop, you don't. The chain sucks. Corporation policy sucks. But if you find a good employee at a GameStop, you are set. You get access to all the freebies. You get access to the harder to find games if one ever comes in. I mean. Don't shit on the entire company. Shit on the bad stores. Shit on the bad employees.
Well, and you get a lot of bad employees.
Absolutely,
Like people that call you gay for buying games or something like that.
Oh, for
Which is
buying
funny,
Space Channel 5.
Actually, I
How
had
about
that. Yeah,
that?
Space Channel 5. Like, when I went to go pick it up, some guy was totally making fun of me for being gay, and he's like, I can't remember who the artist was at the time. It was like some pop girl was like, so do you want Christina Aguilera CD to go with this or whatever?
I think I know exactly who that
really?
was. Yeah.
Well, that's the... Okay, so
I thought it was Eternal Sonata.
That was a different one, and yeah.
Oh, that was a different one?
Yeah. It's like this guy's going to check out the Eternal Sonata, and the guy at GameStop's like, this game is gay, and anybody who would play this game is gay. Like, right to the guy's face. I was like, wow, really?
You can't do that. You can't... That's a thing. Like, if you want to go ahead and
that
take
dude
care
got
of
a
your
fucking
customers-
promotion, by the way.
Which is
He also got fired.
Right.
So.
Which is... Okay, I mean, my experiences at the stop, we had 13 managers in 12 months. And it was just, they referred to me as a piece of the furniture because I was one of the only permanent fixtures there. Mm-hmm. Everybody else was leaving and I was staying. And I had my customers who would come in and they'd be like, so who's your manager this week?
Yeah.
And it was always kind of a laugh and a joke. And as, the ulcers, continued to paralyze me, it was just...
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, who's your manager this week? Why is it not you if you've been there for that long, right?
they did it, and that was one of the problems. Was they went ahead and they were like, okay, so we're going to put you on. Would you be interested in managing? Because I lost 2 managers in one day. He lost 2 managers in one day, okay? So they're like, all right, do you want to go ahead and manage the store? And I'm like, sure, I'll go ahead and do it. And they're like, all right, so we're going to pay you $22,000 a year. And I'm like, yay! And then they go ahead, and I don't have an assistant manager because I was the assistant manager, and there's no manager of the store, so it's just me.
How old are you at this point? 19, 20?
No, I was like 24.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But basically, like, stress was killing me. And we get into the 5th or 6th open to close shift where I am there every single day the entire time it is open.
On salary.
Yes, and my third key calls in sick. And so at that point, like the little blood vessel in the stomach goes, I'm not working anymore. I call up the DM and I'm like, hey, I think I should go to the hospital because my stomach's bleeding. And he's like, yeah, I don't have anybody to fill in for you. You're going to have to stay. And I did. And I did the up, and I'm like, hey, I've got a fever of 103 degrees. I really can't come in today. I can't see straight to drive. I don't have anybody else to open. So I came in.
He couldn't come in? I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
don't have anybody else to
Not
come
even
in.
supposed to be here today.
Oh my god, it's
Yeah.
so awful.
Yeah.
You can hate that movie all you want, but I love that line.
My EB Games that I worked at was the first manager that was there right before I got hired was fired for stealing deposits. And like seriously, he tried to blame it on my buddy, who was the guy that got me the job there. He would close and he'd be like, you can go home. And he'd send the guy home, and then he would sign his name, my buddy's name, as the person that did the deposit, and then just take the deposit home and never deposit it.
Oh my god.
He got away with it for a month before they caught him. So then the next guy
One of the well ones many times.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And then we had the guy that was there when I first started there was an older guy. I don't know, he was in his 40s, and he was so sick sometimes that he would just lay down behind the counter. He he had a lot of problems, and he would bring in a bag with all of his medication. He had like syringes and like all the stuff that he had to take. I don't know exactly what was wrong with him, or whether there was really anything wrong with him and he was a drug addict. I don't know. But I worked for him once, and then we had a guy come in from another store because we had so much shrink at our store that they brought in like the Shrinkmaster. So the Shrinkmaster guy didn't like me, which is why I didn't get hired on full time that time. And I came back the next time, and at that point I had gotten another job. I was actually moving to South Carolina at that point. So the other guy I found out a few years later, so this guy would walk me around the mall. He'd be like, hey Cory, we got somebody else here to cover. I need to talk to you about something. I'd be like, all right. So we'd walk up and down the mall, and I'm 19-ish, and he would walk me up and down the mall and talk about how much he wanted to fuck every girl that worked at every store. That was what our walks were. Just like, let's go up here. Oh, yeah. And he'd be like, hey. And they'd be like, hey. And he'd be like, I want to fuck that girl so bad. Blah, 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 blah. I'd be like... Oh my god. So when I left, I found he started hiring young girls under 18, and he eventually got fired for sexual harassment. Because the store was full of nothing but dumb, like 17-year-old girls that he was trying to get in the sack with, and that's what he got fired for. So
I had a manager that did the same thing.
Yeah.
So before Kathy, and Kathy will be a story that's coming up, but before Kathy there was Jason, and I was working for Jason. I don't know where the hell Jason came from.
Swap or stop?
Stop.
Okay.
So working for Jason, and he started hiring. He was doing the hiring process. I was the assistant manager, and I was like, so should I help you with this? And he's like, no, I can do it myself. So I've got, a couple guys that are working for me, and I liked the people that I had. I had a good team. And all of a sudden all of a sudden we started getting vapid. There was one of them that I liked. She had a good personality, but she also had a nice rack. And so young...
Don't sell yourself short, you do too.
Well, yeah, but I don't think he was into me the way that he was into these girls.
Right.
However, we did end up hiring one that was bubbly blonde, and she came up to me and asked me... She was talking to a customer and had the question. She wanted to come up and confer with me. Can you use a PlayStation 2 controller on an Xbox? And the thing is that yes, it's very possible if you go ahead and have converters for it.
Right,
you can order these things online, but we don't sell them where I was working, so I wasn't going to say that. But it was one of those. Why? Now here's where this is. She has a better story than this. So we used to have demo cardboard pieces that had cardboard PlayStation 2 memory cards on them, and we priced them. They were just dummy ones that would go out on the floor, and you know what they were. So not only, all right, I had this customer who came back to return a PlayStation 2 memory card that did not work for her. This employee sold her the demo, so the cardboard with the cardboard on it, sold her this. The customer comes back and had pulled the cardboard off of the cardboard, put it into her PlayStation 2 and said it didn't work. So...
Did she put in a microwave first?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. So this is my story, but it involves a GameStop employee. I was working at the North store, and this girl was hired at the GameStop near, on High Street, that we were talking about earlier, where they had the manager that called people gay for buying games. And he hired her solely based off the fact that she was an attractive young girl. There was no qualms about it, and it was proven to me after this girl came into the store, because obviously she liked video games, and she was like... Oh, hey, how are you? I was like, I'm fine. I was like, can I help you find anything? Because that's usually what I say to people when they come in the store. She was like, oh, no, I work at a GameStop. I was like, oh, cool, And she was like, yeah, I love Legend of Zelda. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Like, that's cool. And she's like, look, I've even got, it was right when the limited edition DS Lights came out with the Triforce on them, and she was like, look, I've got this. This is how much I love Zelda, And she's like, and I've got, Phantom Hourglass, and blah. I'm like... Awesome. And she was like, yeah, so she was looking at the Game Boy games, and she was like, I was looking to see if you guys had any of the Game Boy Zelda games. I'm like, oh, we got some of them. And it was like, we got some, more stuff on the other side of the counter, which is where we keep our classic games. And she walks around to that side, and she goes, oh, there's some Zelda stuff in here. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, what are these? What are these gold things, these plastic things down here? I was like, those are Nintendo games. And she's like, I've never seen those before. And I was like... I'm sure you haven't. It was amazing. Biggest Zelda fan ever. Had never seen the original Legend of Zelda cartridge.
You were just telling me about the dudes that came.
Oh, the other. Okay, so the other Zelda game.
There's more.
Yeah. This was at the campus store because I work everywhere, and there were these kids that came in and they were really obnoxious. Just kind of like the. I hate to be so judgmental, but they were scuzzy little gross kids wearing dirty white T-shirts
and earlier.
No, younger, maybe around that age, but they didn't act it. If you met them, you would think they were either just slow or ICP fans. So,
how did that work?
So they come in and they're asking me all these questions. So they come in, and the kid is asking me about, because the campus store was the mecca of Nintendo 64 games.
Which makes sense. It's college-age kids these days.
Yeah, the college...
grew up with the N64.
And this was maybe a year ago.
The N64 kid just turned 20 or something?
Yeah, it's the right age. They're nostalgic for it. I don't blame them that they think the system is the best system ever made. I think they're crazy, but the kid asks me... He's asking me about different games. He's like, do you have the first Zelda game? And I was like, yeah, it's right down there. He's like, no, the first one. I was like, yeah, Legend of Zelda, the gold Nintendo cartridge down there. He was like, no, the first one for the Nintendo 64. And I was like... And my buddy Chris was in the store with me, and he was standing on... Not this Chris, different Chris. He was standing on the other side of the kid, cracking up, and I was like... He described it as this severe look of, just me giving in like this awful, terrible look on my face, like I'd just been punched in the stomach or something. I was like, yes, we have that one. We have Ocarina of Time, the Nintendo 64. Legend of Zelda.
You'd get the people that would come and say, do you have the original Sega? And they would mean Genesis. That's understandable. Nobody fucking heard of the Master System, okay?
Right, yeah.
But come on, the original Zelda? Oh.
I loved... Okay, so I had two things. I had people that would come in and say, I've got every video game system out there.
I love
and I'd
that
be like, oh my god, so you have a Pippin? I've never even seen one of those. And now I've officially seen, but I love fucking people like that. Because they're like, what?
Oh,
I was like, TurboGrafx 6 Neo Geo?
It's amazing how many people
like,
don't know about the TurboGrafx, actually. It really surprises me.
Shocking.
It fell off the map.
Yeah, I was a kid, and I was like, this system is so amazing.
The buzz for the 16-bit systems when the Genesis and TurboGrafx came out was pretty solid, but once the Super NES hit, then the TurboGrafx kind of fell off the map while the Genesis
and also, I mean, the TurboGrafx was caught in that awkward area. Like, I remember when I used to pick up, like, EGM, EGM2, and like, Game Fan magazine and stuff, and they'd list, like, all the systems on there, and that was, like, the boom of every system. So it was, like, across the top, they'd have, Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, 3DO, Sega CD, 32X. There's, like, 10 systems in there, and it's like... it wasn't backed by a bigger company, and it wasn't so ridiculously stupid like the Philips CDI and the 3DO and whatever. That it just, a lot of people just forgot about it or didn't even notice it.
I love showing people that haven't seen like the Wanda Gamelon stuff or like any of that. I love showing people that for the first time. That's like one of the more amazing moments to see.
On the other end, I was been to visit you at the campus store, and there's this 12-year-old, and he knows everything because he watches the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Oh yeah, dude.
So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
I've become so bitter.
I like the Angry Video Game Nerd. A lot of classic guys like myself hate him because they think he's pompous. But if you watch his speech before his 5200 review, he gives the most heartfelt, eloquent description of playing a 2600 that anybody could ever give, and I've been a fan ever since watching that.
Well, and actually, like,
but just basing your whole opinion of classic games off his opinion, and
people do that with Yahtzee too.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Every time that he mentions a game, it's gonna blow the charts off. It's gonna go double in price on Amazon. It's obnoxious. I deal with it. It's not the worst thing ever. Yeah. But I would prefer the bratty kid over the fuckers that think that the original Legend of Zelda's on the N64.
Yeah, well, we get some really excellent young kids that are... I had a kid today that was born... I asked him what year he was born because I was really curious, because he was buying the original Legend of Zelda game for the NES. And he was I've never played this before. I was like, well, that's cool. I was like, it's the 25th anniversary coming up right now, and he was like, really? And I was like, what year were you born? And he was like, 2000. I was like, oh God. Oh. When I take people's IDs and they're 18 and I'm like,
oh, terrible.
How were you born that year?
So I do have one of those good, so somebody comes in and asks a stupid question. Mm-hmm. So we had demo boxes, and we would have boxes for systems that, we carry the system, we put the price on it, and it would be the original box of the system. So this lady comes in, and she points up at an Atari 2600 box. And she goes, A-Star? What does that do? And the thing is that I had to rewire my brain to be able to properly say that. Because it's like, okay, Atari, that's fine if you're not aware of what an Atari is. She was probably 35. So if she didn't know what an Atari is, apparently, what are that do must be a very common question for her.
What are that do?
What are that do?
What are that do?
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's
okay, A-Star?
A-Star.
I don't get that. What?
It's Atari. She pointed at it and said, A-Star? What are that do? She
just couldn't read.
She couldn't read.
Couldn't read,
okay.
But it was,
I had a guy.
She announced it. It wasn't, we would have customers who would have problems, or, you'd have customers who'd come in and go, I know nothing about this, or I just got this system, and I need to pick out games for it. And it's like, if you know how to ask the right questions, you can find the right things for people. Yeah. But when you come in and you broadcast the ignorance...
Well, I had a customer at the campus store that told me straight up that he was illiterate. He was like, I don't care. I don't need to read. He was like, I don't like this game because I can't read and there's too much reading in it. You're like, give me like Call of Duty or something like that. So
funny thing is, I think the better game, that the less reading you have to do anyway. So
Well,
I'm getting that jaded point at this point.
I can't agree with you on that one. Well, okay, I hated working in when I worked at the stop. They would hire in managers from other companies, you know, who have this track record for another company. So, manager used to work at a Hollywood Video.
Oh, it's the sign of success.
Yes. So used to work at Hollywood Video, and my third key at the time was like, you need to watch her. She was fired under mysterious circumstances. So, okay. We have to do a gut check every morning. Basically, we check to make sure that we've got the disc and we've got the game or the case out on the wall for everything that we've got. So go ahead and start doing the gut checks. I'm doing the gut checks, and PlayStation 2 is off. And like the first time, it's off by a couple, and then more, and then more. And every time I'm doing this, we get to the point to where I'm off like 30 games, and that's it. That's a big number.
Yeah.
I start losing other games, and all of a sudden, a copy of a game, Minish Cap, had just come out, and I had said I would love to buy Minish Cap. I'm really excited about it, and one of the copies disappeared, and I didn't reserve it because I worked there, so I didn't have to reserve anything. But it was the one I was thinking about getting. And so my 1/3 key left. We had somebody else come in, and the manager at the time gets one of her buddies to be the third key. So somebody else that worked with her at Hollywood Video. So manager and this third key are leaving, and then one of my regular employees are walking out, and he sees them, like he's waiting for his ride, and he sees them leaving with big bags of stuff. So he lets me know, and at this time, manager goes ahead, sits me down, and says, you know, really don't think that you're working out, you know, you're having all of these problems, you know, it seems like we're not getting along, you know, your numbers aren't very good, the district manager's been saying things about you, so we're really thinking about just getting rid of you. So, you know, I need to talk to the district manager tomorrow, and we're gonna probably let you go. So I call the 1-800 number, and I'm like, you know, hey, this is the situation. They saw her leave with stuff. All of these things are disappearing, and she's trying to fire me, and things that I was interested in are disappearing. And so the next day, I'm called into work. I come into work. She comes in. Third key comes in. District manager comes in. Loss prevention guy comes in. Third key leaves in tears. She leaves. The loss prevention guy, you know, goes ahead and leaves. District manager pulls me aside and says, if you ever go above my head again, I will fire you. People like you I can replace you with somebody on the street right now. People like you are all over the place. And so I continue working. This guy was just the biggest heartless douchebag ever, but I'm trying to protect my position. She's robbing the store blind. They didn't prosecute. And she's non-rehirable by GameStop, but there was nothing done.
Yeah. That sounds like your district. Actually, the guy that came down for loss prevention, what year was that?
Minish Cap came out in GBA, so it had to be
PS2. I was still selling PS1 because the guy that came down that I said he just flat out hated me. That was EB Games, so it wouldn't have been GameStop.
Yeah, and the thing was, the loss prevention guy, I was letting the loss prevention guy, you know, I was letting him know the situation. I was keeping detailed notes on everything. I wrote down everything she said. I was keeping all of the gut checks that, you know, as they're disappearing, I'm keeping them all dated and everything like that. I let everybody know everything that I could, and I don't know, when I talked to the person on the phone, they were okay, but, you know, having the district manager like that, when you get people in who don't know what they're talking about and don't care, they're just there to do business.
Yeah,
you can't run a business like that. You have to have some sort of passion in it. And unfortunately for our situation, you get assholes, you know, year in and year out, or you get ridiculous situations that jade you to it.
I think that's just corporate. I don't think that's just
to video game.
You know, when I had I would have customers who would come in, and honestly, all of my best employees were former customers. Where they'd come in and I'd be like, hey, I need somebody to come in and I'd like you, if you'd be interested, I need you to fill this position. And I hired a bunch of guys in, and I love who's running it. I love the kids that what they've got doing. They pulled out the sawtooth. So they've got a little bit of sawtooth left in there, but they took out this. I hate sawtooth with the flaming burning.
We explain what sawtooth is to the new to the.
Oh my god! Instead of having it flush on the wall, you've got basically it's like keyblades, and we referred to it as the keyblade store is what we called it. But it's an awkward panels out on the sides of the walls, and having that flush, you're able to see everything.
It's supposed to give you more wall space.
Right, yeah.
Which it does give you more wall space, but it gives you better places to hide. Somebody shit back there once, which was a great story as well. So
I think you finished it.
No.
Someone shit in my store. The end.
No. It's so much better because it wasn't the shit. It was the discovery of the shit. So Paul walks in and oh gosh, little Ron go in and they find it. And what was the question? What was the thing that they said? Little Ron goes back there and he goes, "There's a dead frog back here." And so Paul goes back there and he goes, "Nope, that's a poop." Yeah. Okay. So if we want great stories, when I worked at GameStop, this is the GameStop in my old stomping ground. This was the area that I grew up. It was in a store. We built it in a store that I used to frequent all the time. It was in Little Professor, was what used to be there, and I missed my Little Professor. But went ahead and actually opened the store. Came in with a manager that I knew. Hired a bunch of new kids in. We put all the games out. We totally organized the store. Got it all ready. Got the area, and the area that I grew up in is not the same area anymore. It's definitely gone downhill. So. Right next to us was a Chinese restaurant. And we did have a situation where right next to us, the Chinese restaurant was flushing. They were basically sending whole food down into the pipes. And we had sewage back up in our back room. We had about an inch of sewage, in some areas of our back room. We had a bunch of product stored back there. So what we ended up having to do was we had to take this product and destruct it. And we threw it all in the dumpster in the back. And the kids that were at the Chinese restaurant would dumpster dive for anything we'd throw in there. So we had to basically put biohazard bags full of shit product. I mean, literally like poo on the product in these dumpsters. And the kids would try to go get it. It was so awful.
Yeah.
But number one winning, this is kind of my legendary story for all the fun stories, all the managers were able to tell. 3 kids at this store, the Chinese restaurant next door. 11, 9, and 7. So younger kids. Mm-hmm. And they would come into the store. And this is, after we opened the store, they'd come in after school, and if we weren't busy, I'd help them with homework. And, we'd let them play on the demo systems, and it wasn't a problem. Until they started getting really, indignant about it. That was, they were the ones who got to play over everybody else. And I did kick one of them out permanently, but not permanently after I left. He kept coming back in. I kicked him out for calling me a cocksucking motherfucker. And this was the 11-year-old. And it was because he was fighting with the other kids that would come in. They'd come in after school, and he would be like, no, it's my turn. And he'd been on it for a while. So I kicked him off, and, he cussed me out. So the 2 younger ones come in. And they come in, they run to the back to where the Xbox demo unit is, and then they leave quickly. And it's this very short, they're in for 2 minutes or something like that. And, which is odd. So they go ahead and the little one comes back in. And he goes, Miss Rebecca, Jimmy stuck his hand down his pants and put poop on the Xbox controller. I'm like, that's grody, you need to leave. He did. So there was,
So why was it story number 1?
So we go ahead, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like, what do you do for this? So I kind of cordon it off, spray it with cleaner. One of the customers who was in the store at the time was like, you need to call the police and you need to make sure that this never happens again. So the police show up. Police go over, talk to the mother. Police come back. Police officer comes in, and he apologizes. He said, "I'm sorry we had to meet under such shitty circumstances." So I really appreciated that. But he goes over, talks to the mother, and the mother was angry that her kids were police banned from the store. Like, your kids wiped shit on my Xbox controller. So I called Microsoft to get the controller replaced, and they said it had to be physically broken. So we did end up taking a hammer to it. But
which is what you would have to do.
Shitty.
That was perfect for YouTube.
No. There was the YouTube gem that they deleted because it was too perfect. Okay, so I have a customer come in. It is like $8.55. They come in with 223 DVDs for trade-in. And they want cash. And so I'm like, it's really close to close. Could you come back tomorrow? And they're like, no, I really need the cash. So I go ahead and I'm going through all the discs. My other guy went off to go get a soda. So it is just me, and I'm going through all these discs as quickly as I can. So I've got a stack of stuff that I wanted and a stack of stuff that I didn't. They all smell like cockroaches. There were footprints on some of the shiny sides of the discs. I mean, they were just destroyed, scratched to hell, gross, nasty. I end up not taking a bunch of them. So I've got my piles, and I give them a total. And, this is 200 plus discs. And I'm like, okay, $175. So this is, less than $1 a piece. Mm. And they're like, I can make more at a garage sale.
Okay.
And I can make more at a garage sale. I'm just going to take them home. It's 9:30 at this point. So it took me long enough. So I'm officially staying, the store is open a half an hour longer to take care of these people. And so not only... I bagged up everything that they had, which they did not help me with. So I'm putting everything back in clean bags because their bags were grody. Hand it back over, pull the gates. All right, so Michael comes back in, which is the guy that was working with me at the time. And I take my glasses off, and I put them on the counter. And I start screaming. And screaming and screaming and drop to my knees and pounding my fists on the floor and walking through and just screaming and pulling at my hair and punching the ground. And this is probably 7 minutes of footage of me just freaking out and screaming at the top of my lungs about how much bullshit I just had to go through, and the fact that I just wasted 45 minutes of my life dealing with people that walked out the door and somehow they had power over me, and it's just the biggest freak out ever. And it's me who's kind of fuzzy-headed, dumpy brunette who's overweight. I mean, just screaming and yelling, and it was on video. So we had it on the store cameras. Owner of the store watched it. Everybody watched it. Deleted it because it was too funny. They didn't want to put it on. They didn't want to put it on YouTube because he didn't want people to come to the store.
You could have been a celebrity. That's N64 kid material.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's totally.
Oh my god, it was one of those I guess I felt better afterwards, but I've had situations I've blown a blood vessel in my eye freaking out at these jobs.
Yeah,
because there's so much you can take.
Yeah, I love the I think that working at a call center before working there really helped me be able to deal with situations like that. I mean, I had a man on the phone working at Caltech actually tell me that he wanted to cancel his service because the robot woman upset him so much when he called in. The voice that makes you talk to it. The robot woman was yelling at me, and I'm so upset, and my favorite football player killed himself, and I just can't take it. Cancel my service. And I was like, sir, if you want to cancel your service, you'll have to call back and go to billing.
Oh my god.
Did you offer him shopper's advantage after before he hung up?
We didn't have shopper's advantage.
Oh, my God.
Actually, I actually dealt well enough with him that I talked him into not canceling his service and getting a tech to come out and help him with his problem I was actually talking to my friend who ended up being my roommate a little bit later, and we were goofing around and I answered the phone. I was like, thank you for calling Cox Communications. This is Cory. How may I help you? And the guy's like, ah! And I was like, oh my God. But yeah, afterward, because I used to get really upset when people would start yelling at me. And after that, people would come in and they'd be like, they would have their cockroach. I had a guy at the campus store, basket like this, full of stuff, and I start going through. I was like, this smells like cockroaches. And I'm like, dude, I don't think I'm going to be able to take any of this. And he was like, why? And I was like, there are pieces of bugs in here. And he, I try to not be like, your shit is filthy and full of cockroaches. What the fuck is wrong with you? And you have children, somebody should come in. I was like, we just have a policy on taking things with bugs in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, well, none of them are alive. And I was like, dude.
Oh no!
So I keep going until I purposefully find a live one and show it to him, and he's like, "Oh, I can get that out of there." He was like, "Don't get cockroaches in my store." I was like, I can't take anything. There are cockroaches in it. You need to leave and take this stuff with you." And he was so offended. And I was like, I know it's embarrassing, but I think at the point where somebody's like, there are pieces of bugs in the things you brought me to sell, I would be embarrassed enough to be like, you know what, you're right. I'm just going to go ahead and leave now while I have some shred of dignity.
Exactly. Well, I had this guy come in with this giant, huge, massive military duffel. All right, so, camo duffel, full of stuff. He packed it to the brim all the way up. Goes ahead, brings it in, and I can't take each individual thing out because he packed it like an asshole.
Yeah.
I packed it like an asshole.
Hey yo.
So I take it and I.
Butt sex jokes.
I'm like, hey, I need to empty this out. So I take it, and he's like, okay, whatever. I take it, pour it out on the floor, and pot pours all over everything. Apparently, he was storing pot at the bottom. So I go I'm taking care of everything, and everything he had was covered in pot, like everything. And he ended up deciding that he wanted to keep it all. But I was like, I'm sorry, I can't give you the rest of
it. He was going to roll it up and smoke it later. So.
Well, no, and I've got one of the another gem.
It's time.
Have this huge trade come in. It's a bunch of Genesis stuff, and I end up, it's all these shitty Genesis sports games. So it's the super common Genesis sports games, and they're all in their boxes. So I get to the point where I'm not opening the boxes to check them because it's shitty Genesis sports games. We give like 10 cents a piece on those guys. They're worth nothing.
Yeah. I'd rather not even give 10 cents on them.
Oh, yeah. It's whatever.
I'd rather not even give 10 cents on a, complete anything expensive for that system because I can't sell Genesis to save my life. Hey, I'm sorry, but it is so different. Nobody has any nostalgia for Genesis except for you, Chris.
I know, but that's probably why I collect it because it's cheap.
Well, they were nice cases, and I know Chris specifically goes for nice cases.
Right.
So doing this giant trade,
he's a case queen.
He is.
I love you, Becky.
So he goes ahead and the guy takes store credit, and he leaves the store. And I've got my big stack there, so my kid comes in and, all right, Mark, I need you to do this. I need you to go through these guys and clean and price them. And so he gets through, and he's got college football, NCAA college football 94, something like that. So he opens it up, and he goes, he looks at me with these just like, the jaw dropped. And he goes, what do I do? What is that? It was a plastic bag with a rubber band around it and about $200 worth of cocaine. So we go ahead and I'm like, we need to get rid of this. And so one of the other guys that worked for us, should be a drug-free workplace, was not, but one of the other guys that worked for us goes, I can get rid of it for you. I'm like, no. So we get the police, and I have the police come take the contraband away. But, I didn't. I really thought we should check the news to see if anybody was killed over cocaine laws.
No. You know what that was, right? This was. The Genesis was out. Which college hoops was it? I don't know.
It was college football '94 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that was
You should have bartered it for tattoos.
Yeah, that was probably the height of somebody's life. Like that guy that had it, it was a Genesis sports game. He probably bought all of those like at a garage sale or something, and they probably weren't even his. It's probably some highfalutin like business guy from the '80s or something that stored his coke.
Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, right.
Damn straight.
I don't know. We've never had any actual. I've never had any actual drugs in anything.
I had a joint show up, bunch of seeds.
Well, Molly works at Half Price, and they've had
Half Price books.
Yeah, they've had poop in a book, a rat's nest.
Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely seen those guys before.
Yeah, I mean they've had some pretty crazy stuff, and people get really indignant at Half. They bring in like water damaged books, and they're like, "I can't believe you only give me a quarter piece for these." And I'm like, "Oh, all of your mass market paperback John Grisham novels that we. Yeah, I'm so sorry that we gave you a quarter for a stack of them. We're going to throw them away for you. Like you're lucky we're giving you a quarter for this stack."
See, it was the taking in things that you're not paying any attention to. Somebody pissed all over one of the Mickey Mouse games for the GameCube. And it really was. It was a very obviously piss, and it wasn't cat piss. You know, there's that specific tang of cat piss. You know cat piss when you smell it. This was not cat piss. And it's just, we had a controller that came in. It was a cool one, too. It was a PS2, like Spider-Man controller. So it had, like, guards on the side that had Spider-Man's logo, and Spidey was on it. It was really cool. The way you take it is you take them, you wrap the cord, you put it in the bag, you seal the bag up, and you've got your GameStop, used thing. Well, the cockroaches hatched after 3 or 4 days. So I walked by, and I'm like, that bag's moving. And pull the bag out, and we ended up destructing it. But oh god, well, I had a kid actually just the other day. I had a kid with a couple of games, and I was like, "What is on your games?" It was brown. He was a younger kid. I was like, "This looks like poop," and he was like, "I can't believe I was actually that," but I was offended that he brought them in, and he was with a really regular customer at the high street store. And he was like, I don't know what it is. I was like, is it poop or is it chocolate? And he's like, it could be either. At least he's honest.
Right? I'm like, who has a location in their house where poop or chocolate could both be on your video games? It's a toss up between poop and chocolate. I'm gonna go with chocolate. Might be
I'm not gonna. Well, that was the whole. So I go ahead and I come in and I explain the poop on the Xbox controller story to my third key at the time, and he was like, "So how did you know it was really poop? Did you sniff it?" And I was like, "It was like peanut butter." And they said it was poop. I'm not gonna oh yeah, that's poop.
That's definitely poop. Let me get a little taste in. Yep.
We had a bloody Dreamcast controller that came in, and I mean really, like there was blood all over it. And then Bill, I came. So
Soul Calibur got serious.
Bam.
To our British listeners, we're not cussing. It was a bloody Dreamcast.
So, I came out and Bill was like, I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he was like, there's one guy that comes in and trades all the time. He came in and I guess he was cutting open the cases or something like that. He cut his hand. He traded in like 20 games and there was blood not only on all of the cases, but the discs. So, like, Bill is, cleaning the blood off of these discs. Like, at that point, it is a biohazard. Why are you continuing? You do not have to do this. You do not have to put up with...
Bill
can say no.
Bill has made some pretty...
Thank you.
No.
Bill has made some pretty poor decisions. Like, driving that stuff to that guy's house that...
Yes.
Yelled at him, and I was like, no store.
No.
No.
And I specifically said, Bill, you should not have to do this. This is not being nice. this is dangerous. And the guy was a dick, too.
Yeah.
This is a reminder to Mr. Editor that we're going to probably be removing all the names and store names.
That's fine.
I'm just going to grab some video game just sound bites, and there's just going to be like Mario jumping noises and
That'd be
Koopa
awesome.
stomps over
That's a
all
good.
of them.
That's a good idea, sir.
That I don't know.
That was above and beyond. Like there's a level where you don't have to give up your dignity. There was a guy who came in and he was
Bill
trading
has
in.
given up his dignity.
Well,
he works at Party City now.
Does he? Aw.
And somebody smeared poop on the walls in his bathroom.
And that's I think
And he quit working.
That's where you expect poop to be smeared. Damn it!
So some guy came in and they were doing their trade in, and I'm doing the prices, and they've got a bunch of shitty like PS2 sports games.
You gotta be careful with the shitty thing now. Okay, gotta change it up.
They've got
Generic,
typical, lame ass. I have to kind of be careful with that one too. No asses, no shit. Okay, we're taking all of that out. They came in and they're trying to trade in basically like the most generic sports games on the PS2.
Right.
And I'm like, here's what I can give you, but I can't give you much more on that. And they're like, you're raping me on these prices. And so I took the stuff and I put it on the counter and I'm like, I don't need any of your games and you can leave my store. And they were like, that's bullshit. I can say whatever I want to say. And I'm like, and I cannot take any of your stuff or deal with you.
And I can ask you to leave. I can serve whoever I want.
Yeah. Well, and I had, I was dealing with this big trade-in, and it was a pretty big, there's lots of stuff on the, on the counter. And I've got a regular customer come in with somebody I was not familiar with. So they come in, and they had 3 things to trade in. And so it was like, I asked the guy that I was dealing with the big trade, I was like, hey, would it be okay if I take care of these guys first? Just, it's 3 pieces, I should be able to get it done with really quick. And the guy was really cool about it. He was like, sure. So I go ahead and I'm checking prices for the 2 people that had just come in. And the one guy that handed me his stuff starts trying to take stuff off the counter that belongs to the trade-in I'm doing. And I'm like, hey, that's not mine. And he's like, what? And so I keep doing the trade, and he does it again, and I'm like, that's not mine. Those belong to somebody else. And he's like, what? What, you think because I'm black I'm stealing stuff? You racist or something? And I was like, here's your stuff. You can go. And I called one of my other employees out, and I was like, hey, I need to go in the back real quick. So I go in the back, and Paul said he could hear me screaming in this giant thump. And so I ended up bruising my knuckles. They were all Smurf blue for a while. Yeah. And the race, it was just one of those, I'm not doing this. And the guy, he was really indignant as he was leaving, and it's like, I'm doing you a favor by putting you ahead. Yeah. I don't have to deal with this shit. Yeah. There's retail where you take it. I'm done taking it in the ass for people. You guys can, if you're going to be a dick, you don't have to get weighted.
There's only one guy. David has seen my only moment of pure anger at...
You are not angry.
Yeah, I'm not a very angry person most of the time, but I drop-kicked one of our trash cans across the store on the phone one time. Because there is this guy that he still comes in, and he is the loudest fucking person I have ever met in my life. And we call him Big Dog, because that's what he calls everybody. I don't know if you ever heard about him. He's attached to David, luckily now, but he goes, hey David, and it's just loud noises piss me off,
like barking.
Yeah, and he goes, all right, I can hear him word for word on the phone. He called me up one time, and the conversation was, my Xbox 360 isn't working. Only translate that into loud, crazy, obnoxious dude talking at me, and I was like, then you need to call Microsoft. And he was like, I don't want to call Microsoft. I want you to call Microsoft for me. And I said, no. And he said, I want you to do this for me. And I said, no. And it went on. He was like, well, let me do it. I just need to bring this in. I'm like, no, I can't do that for you. And he would not stop. I was on the phone with him for 20 minutes telling him no. And I was like, just go on the computer. You can do it on a computer. Well, I don't have a computer. Can you do it on your computer? No. It's not my job to call Microsoft for your red ring problem. And David was just standing there, and I'm getting more and more... And this guy is clueless to the fact that I'm getting angry, and I get off the phone, I was on the phone, and I was like, he's like, well, David said he'd do it, and I was like, then come in and talk to David, and I, like, drop kick the trash can and spray trash everywhere, all over the store, and David is like, what the fuck? And I was like, big dog, you can deal with them. I was like, fuck, I went off for like 10 minutes of just yelling about this man, and I will not deal with it. When he comes into the store and I'm working at that store, I'll be like, you're it, and I will go in the back and take like a 20-minute bathroom break, because he will be in there for that long.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the worst customer experience I ever had was at a grocery store, and a woman with a 1 or 2 year old child, the guy in front of her said, "Oh, hey, cute baby," and she kind of, and it's like, oh, I should have known at that point it wasn't going to be good. But
how dare you call my baby cute?
It's your classic. She gave me a 10, I gave her change, and then she said, I gave you a 20. Where's my change? It was one of those stories.
Yeah,
and of course, being the corporate place that we were, the people up above me gave her her fucking change back, making me look like an idiot, and whatever. The store went out of business not too long after that, believe it or not.
Yeah,
We've dealt with that. I think we can all agree we've dealt with assholes in every.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
We're equal to opportunity haters here. Now you're playing with podcasts.
I've got a bunch of people that have come in. There was a guy that I banned from the store 3 times. He was a Yu-Gi-Oh guy who would come into my store and he would buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
So that's worth a ban.
Well, that's totally worth a ban. We would come in and buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but there's this way that if you feel the packages, you can actually feel out.
From what I understand, the Yu-Gi-Oh cards are like that. Yeah.
So I wouldn't let him feel out the packages, and he would go around me and ask other people. He would be like, so he goes to the owner and he's like, can I fill out the packages? He actually pulled out all of the holofoils out of a box, and I was like, Ron, I will prove to you there are no holofoils in the box. And I opened the box, there was not a single one left because he bought them all. So he was basically just trying to like dick with us. He was also, we had a policy in the store, no food. We were trying the no food because people were spilling ice cream on the games and the magazines and things like that. So we have this policy, and I go, you're eating ice cream, there's a sign that says no food in the store. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, you need to leave. And he's like, I'm not eating it. And I was like, I don't care, you've got it in the store, you're not supposed to have food.
Said no food, not no eating.
So he goes ahead and he's walking really slow, and I'm like, I can call mall security. And he was like, I work in the mall, I can get away with what I need to. Like, I'm fine. So as he's leaving, he's flicking me off, and I'm like, good, you cannot come back. So this is one of the times I banned him. I was like, for pulling all those Yu-Gi-Oh cards out of the box, gone.
Same guy?
Same guy. All right. And so he
Motherfucker.
What did he do? He did. Okay, I went up to him one day and I was like,
he worked at Claire's.
I don't even.
He worked at Abercrombie, apparently.
The thing was, he got fired from his job, but would still come in the work shirts. And, come in for a shift and just stay in the mall. He was a creepy motherfucker, but ended up banning him for those 2 things. I went up to him one day and I was like, look, I've kicked you out of my store twice. Why don't you just shop when I'm not here? If you're going to come in, shop when I'm not here. But you're in my store right now and I've kicked you out. I'm going to call mall security again. Just don't come back when I'm here. And he was like, no, fuck you. Do whatever you want. So call mall security again, and eventually. All right, so last 2 weeks working there. This is Yu-Gi-Oh guy. So I'm like, I tell my one guy Paul, I'm like, I hope Yu-Gi-Oh guy comes in. I really, really hope Yu-Gi-Oh guy comes in. I need resolution on this situation. So he goes ahead, dude comes in. All right, and he comes in and he was like, so do you guys have any Yu-Gi-Oh cards? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, I'm glad that you let me back in the store, and you're not I'm glad you're not being such a bitch and let me back in the store. And I'm like, okay. And he walks around and he sees a box of Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the counter up there. And he's like, I want to get some of those. And I'm like, I am not going to help you. I'm not selling you anything. I'm never dealing with you again. If you want to come into the store, that's fine, but you're not buying anything from us. If you want to come in here and be a dick, that's fine. But this is the last chance that you get to deal with me, and I'm not selling you anything. So he goes ahead and he's like, you're such a fucking bitch, and, I just want to buy my fucking Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I'm like, I'm not selling you anything.
I have never heard of an aggro Yu-Gi-Oh player.
And he was
That is so mind-blowing.
Well, that's because most of them are 6 to 12. So.
Yeah, he was like...
How old was this guy?
25, 30? I mean, like, he was an older guy, and it just...
I hate the pedophile stereotype with that kind of stuff, but that's the only explanation.
So he goes ahead and he's calling me a fucking bitch, and he's walking, he's leaving the store, and he's flicking me off, and I'm like, dude, goodbye. And I was in the process of training the guy that was replacing me, and I was like, look, all right, this was a long time coming. I needed to deal with this. This needed to end. And he was like, "That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm really glad that
most places won't let you get away with stuff like that.
Oh hell no!
If you
was out corporate, you'd be fired.
Yeah.
Well, it was. How much can you put up with? Mm-hmm. And being where I am now, like I'm now up in Columbus. I work for corporate computer store chain, and they're being called racist. I've been cussed out twice. I've been here for a month, year and 6 months at this point. Not even that, yeah. Year and 6 months. And I will honestly say, at the store, where I'm working at now, there has been more shit in my store, more poops in my store, than dealing with the rest of my 10 years of retail experience.
That's crazy.
Which is, yeah.
I actually was happy when I came up to Columbus because things are way calmer here for me. So
believe it or not, it is. I mean, I grew up in Cincinnati too, and we're talking all this shit now. Although I guess I'm like with you, the worst job I had was dealing on the phone.
Yeah,
and that's when you get it from everybody.
Yeah,
Canada too. Just saying. My worst customer was calling me on Thanksgiving Day from Canada wanting his stock quotes, even though the fucking stock market was closed.
That's nice. Well, I think no matter what, you're going to run into assholes, and you're going to run into bad situations. I got fired from my job at the toy store. A lady came in, and she was buying an N64, a new N64, so $250 there, and...
another reason to hate the motherfucking
N64.
There are so many reasons.
Super Mario 64, extra controllers, and she's paying with a check. And so she hands me the check over, and I put it through the check reader, and it doesn't go through. And so I've got the bag on the counter, and I turn around to grab the phone. She grabs the bag and runs off. And not only did they fire me, but they fired me on the day of my grandpa's funeral. So after the funeral, they're like, "Hey, don't worry about coming back in tomorrow. Because you're fired."
Because you let him go?
Because she ran off.
You're not allowed to stop. You're not allowed to stop people that do that. You're
not allowed to stop, but I shouldn't have left the merchandise on the counter. That was my flaw.
Which is, I mean, true, but...
Well, it's unfortunately, in this world, no matter how good of a heart you have...
Yeah.
You're going to have to take precautions to stop things from happening.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so the one time I've ever actually had to go to the courthouse for a reason other than getting married. So, okay, dude comes in, and this is like if you played Guess Who, there would be no, like, okay, the guy with one eye. Like, this is the one guy you could pick out.
Yeah.
So like, in a lineup, it's him. No matter what, you could pick him out of anybody. All right, so comes in, kind of skeezy, older guy, probably did lots and lots of, intravenous drugs. I mean, this guy was sort of strung out, came in, traded in 2 systems with no controllers or cords. It's like I've never dealt with him before. He handed me his ID. So I take down all of his information. I mean, a name, address, phone number. Mm-hmm. And I ask for the phone number. We take down the ID number. He trades these guys in. So I go ahead and I get him this cash. I'm currently working on something. I'm walking around. He stays in the store. There was a broken DVD player that I was working on. I was going to take it apart and clean the laser and see if it worked again. So I'm dealing with a customer over, away from where I was. The broken DVD player is upside down, but on the counter. He looks at the camera, takes the DVD player, and runs out of the store.
Is that a camera? Yes, it is. I'm out of here.
So I call mall security. They get the police involved. I end up having to testify against this guy. And the thing was, they brought me in to testify against him. So I go by myself. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning so that I can be there, on time. I think it was like 7 o'clock when I had to be there. It was, for 7 or 8. It was the first thing in the morning, downtown, dressed in my, dressed to the T's because I didn't want to be, unprofessional. Going through downtown Cincinnati, I got to see my first prostitute ever. It was Halloween, and she was dressed as a rabbit. And I was like, she's in a bunny costume. Oh my God, that's a prostitute. So go to the trial, and I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm like nervous as hell because this is scary. They lead this guy in, and they explain this guy as a one-man crime wave, and he is the dumbest guy in the world. Like, the judge just looks at him, and the guy is like, yeah, I'm addicted to heroin, and I've had a really hard life, and I promise I'll never do this again. And he's like, as soon as I let you go, you're going to come back in here. I know you are. So go get clean and try to find some better way to live your life. And I didn't even have to testify because there were like mounds of you're an idiot.
Yeah.
He stole security stuff, like security cameras from Radio Shack. They had a security demo there. Like, the security demo caught him stealing security cameras from Radio Shack.
Wow.
Yeah, just...
Have you guys... has there been any serious crime at...
Well, we had the guy... We don't know who this was. The alarm got set off, and... actually, I opened that morning. And I came in, and it was really freaky because... I thought, I first came in, I was like, something happened to the ceiling. Like, the tiles were pulled down, and I was just baffled. And I went into the back to go to the bathroom, because that's what I did when I got there. And the back door had been broken open and bent. It was a metal door with, like, a crowbar or something.
This is Polaris, right?
No, this is High Street.
High Street.
Okay.
And I was like, the fuck happened? So I call the owner at the time, and who was no longer the owner, and he was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck happened. Hold on. So we find out the cops had actually broken down the back door. Our alarm had gone off because someone was trying to climb through the ceiling to get into our store. They didn't get in because I think as soon as their feet hit through and broke our alarm went off.
Motion sensor.
Yeah, the motion sensor went off and set off the alarm, and they must have scrambled out. They said it had to be a tiny person, like the shoe prints were super, super small. We've had a couple of people that have tried to steal stuff. I know we've had stuff stolen. At any store like that, you have plenty of stolen stuff traded in.
Right.
The worst situation we were in, maybe the second worst, but I can't tell the first worst, was these guys would come in, and at first it seemed normal-ish. Like, they looked a little scuzzy. The games were really clean, though. Like, these almost smell new, but whatever. It's like 5 copies of a game, or not of the same game, but 5 games. And they'd come in, and then 15 minutes later, another guy would come in with a similar selection with slightly different things, and they were all pretty new. And it kept happening until we noticed it was the same 5 guys every time. They were all coming out of the same van. So they were smart. They would wait in the van. One of them would leave, would come in with the stuff that they stole from somewhere. Trade it in. The next person would come in, trade it in. And they would do it in succession, so it wasn't 5 of them standing in a row, all with the same stuff, because they knew that they couldn't trade in multiple copies of the same thing. They knew they couldn't trade in sealed stuff, or it would, set off flags. And they would each have their own ID. So it was spread apart. And eventually we started getting pretty wise to it. And we were like, so we started, not knowing what to do in a situation like that, which is to just be like, dude, we can't take your stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty much just David and I running that store at that point because the owner was non-existent. We were just, trying to lowball the shit out of it. We were like, this stuff is stolen. We're going to take it down 20 or 30% of what we normally buy it in for, and hopefully they'll start coming to our store and go somewhere else, which didn't happen. They just kept coming to our store until eventually one day one of the guys came in, and he was on his bike, and I'd never seen him on his bike before. He was always with the other guys, and he started telling us that one of the other guys had ratted him out to the police, left him stranded at a Best Buy while they were stealing stuff from the like he's telling me this like straight up like he's like so here's and he came in at like 5 till 9, so I'm in the store by myself with this dude, and he's got a house arrest bracelet on his ankle, and I'm like, I mean, I suspected stuff, but I didn't think so. Now I'm like, okay, it's out there now. I was really curious how he was getting away with it, because they were getting so much stuff. I was like, so I just started asking him straight up questions. He's like, you know where I got this stuff from, and you know why I'm in trouble now. He's like, I'm a career criminal.
Yep.
He's like,
it's
I don't.
a job.
Yeah. He said, I do not know any other way to make money other than to do this. He's like, I've got a kid. I've got to support the kid.
Yep.
I have a record. I can't get a job.
Yep.
So the only way I can make money is to do this. Because if I don't do this, then my kid goes hungry, and I go hungry, and I starve.
Yep.
And he's like, the other guy is on heroin, and he's the one that ratted us out. He's like, I wanted to warn you that he's telling the cops that you guys are his fence. And he's telling people, well, not the cops, the other people, that we were his fence, and like laughing about it, making fun of us because we're so stupid that we keep taking this stuff in. And we didn't know a proper protocol on it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
You're not minimum wage, but you're a low level employee.
Well,
They don't tell you this. Corporate stores, they don't. I mean, what policy do they have at GameStop?
You don't take it in. They stopped taking disc only. Like they did no big stacks of.
But their system with the
you're
the
not
van.
allowed to. You're not allowed to accuse. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're
you
powerless.
You really
they cut your nuts off at those corporate jobs.
Right. You really can't. There's nothing you can do on your end. It's up to the management at that point to be able to say, like, you have to follow this protocol.
Yeah.
But if you say anything like, I believe these are stolen, that person can take you to court for it.
Yeah. And so I started asking that guy questions because I'm seriously curious at this point.
Sure.
And he's like, oh, well, this is how I do it. And he opens up the inside of his jacket. He has sewn pockets, and so it's just a flannel. It has more pockets than any pair of cargo pants and jacket I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And he's got tin foil lining the inside of it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's how he would get through it. He was like, I do that. He started telling me about how he'd been caught for selling drugs. Like, gives me this whole life story and wants a ride home. And I'm like, dude, I can't give you a ride home. I have somewhere I have to be. David gave him a ride home.
Oh, see, David's a sweet guy, but David's... He's like Bill. It's one of those like somebody's going to be like, you're going to do this for me, and they're like, sure, I'll do this for you. Gun, bullet, head, dead.
Yeah, I don't think David would put himself in a seriously dangerous situation, but that was kind of a dangerous situation. The guy wasn't armed or anything like that, but it was just like, you're going to drive this guy back to his house, and
drive this guy back to his house, and you don't know that. Okay, so we need to go down the street, but David also has a car and a wallet. Yeah. Like if he was packing heat, he could have killed him.
Yeah.
So it's scary. I had guys when I was working at one of the places I was working at. That they would come in. Basically, they'd hit other stores in the mall, and so basically, like, I was told, don't refuse this stuff. Take whatever you can because we need the stock.
And that is another thing that they can get away with.
Yeah, I mean, we need the stock, so keep going. Don't refuse this stuff.
Backtracking just a bit, there was a store locally that just got busted by the feds.
Yep,
and shut down.
Actually,
for taking stolen stuff pretty.
I can dovetail into that pretty easily.
They were totally shut down for that, and I think it was run by a couple ladies. It was like a couple sisters, I think.
Yep, the store is open again, and it's owned by someone else. So.
I came to the boss and said, I can no longer do this. I know where this is from, and I know this is wrong.
Yes.
It's my friends at other stores are losing their jobs because of theft. Mm-hmm. And these are the people that are doing it. And it's they had a kid, and my heart just, every time they'd bring in this cute, adorable baby. Mm-hmm. They'd bring in this cute little baby, and they're making their money how they know to make their money, and my heart would bleed because this kid you're being raised in this situation.
Yeah.
You're in this situation, and they would go downstairs, and any time that they would be accused of stealing, they would just scream and yell and say, how dare you say that about me? You're just doing this because, of who I am. And it's like, no, it's because you have this huge track record, and we have video of you doing it, and we know that you're doing it, and you've got a record, and you're in my store, and you've never bought anything from me.
Yeah. When we had very unscrupulous managers or owners at our store, there was a group of people that were bringing in trash bags full of sealed games that came out that week.
Take them. Yeah, oh, sure.
And I eventually I will not be party of this. I was like, if you want to do this, do it somewhere else. And they did.
Well,
and the people that were doing it were the people that were supplying that other store that got raided by the feds. And that I eventually talked them into cutting it off because I do not feel comfortable with this situation. There was a guy in today, and I was like, this guy looks really fucking familiar. And I was out near where
you were at the store that's near where the one that got shut down is.
Yes. And I started scanning the DVDs, and I was like, I recognize this guy, and I feel like he's skeezy. And all the DVDs were like really newish and not newer movies, but like,
clean.
Yeah.
When you try to take them out of the case, it's really difficult to pop them out.
Yeah, and I was racking my brain on where I remember the guy from, and then Chris called me, and the guy starts talking about how many copies of like some new game that just came out he has at home, and I was like, I remember you. And it was one of those guys.
Yep.
Well, Chris called me from the back of the store and was like, that stuff's obviously hot. Tell him that the system's broken and we can't take it. He went in the back because Chris was there, and I was like, cool. Yeah. And I was like, and so Chris came back up, and I was like, I acted like I was on the phone. I was like, oh, yeah, let me look that up for you. Oh, I'm sorry, you'll have to call back. Like, our system is down. And Chris was like, what? I was like, yeah, the system's down, Chris. He's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. He's like, I guess we can't take any of your stuff. And they're like, that's cool. We'll be back later. And they never came back, luckily. But, yeah, I mean, sketchy people. That's the kind of stuff that's the scary end of that. In a lot of places, like, I am really glad that where I work now does not tolerate it.
Right.
And it is the same place I used to work, but they didn't know any better. And we didn't know any better. We didn't know the proper policies with the police or anything like that. I mean...
But imagine throwing these 18-year-old, 16-year-old kids into the situation at corporate stores all the time. I mean...
I'm afraid that anybody else that works there that doesn't know that... I immediately called David.
Yeah.
And I was like, David, these guys are coming back.
Right.
And you need to make sure you don't...
Do we have any funny... I know we're getting close to our finishing time. Do we have any good funny stories to end this thing off on? And I'm going to say before, this has been one hell of a podcast, and we might have to do a second one because this is better than I hoped it could be.
So I guess I'm going to chime in here because I've only worked at 2 video game stores. One of them not for very long, and I don't really have like any good stories about customers. Like the customers were all pretty cool at that place. Lots of great stories about weird politics inside, but whatever.
Right? Yeah,
that's any job.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have a great just customer story, and it's a good one because it starts off very scary and it ends in fantastic karma. So I used to work at this computer store, and computer store is pretty big, and there's electronic doors when you go in, and it's motion sensor, so you walk up, the doors open, just like grocery store, whatever else, but they open like side to side. They don't swing open, they just like slide to the side and open up. And you go in the entrance, and there's 2 entrance doors. And then to exit, there's a wall that separates them. You go around to the other side of the wall, and there's 2 exit doors. One thing that always kind of tripped people up, especially when they're going to the service department, was they'd come out and they wouldn't go over to the other wall. They'd try to walk out the first entrance door thinking they could get out, and that motion sensor wasn't turned on for theft reasons. So people would walk up and then the door wouldn't open, and they just go and walk around the wall. So here's the setup. So I'm working one night and working over in the front area, like where the cashiers and stuff are, and it's a pretty quiet night. So I'm just doing some cleaning or whatever, and there's some guy over in the service department who is just screaming and throwing a fit. And I think the backstory was bought a computer. The computer was like 6 months old. Something went out in it. The company wouldn't do it under warranty because they said that it was something that he had done, and he was furious because it was like a $600 repair charge that we had quoted him. So, yelling and screaming, and the manager was like, look, there's nothing we can do. If they won't take it under warranty, it's not our warranty or whatever. And the guy's just getting super irate and super angry. And I think the manager ended up asking him to leave. And the guy, and I felt really bad because his wife was with him, and his wife is just looking at her shoes because she's so ashamed and embarrassed that this is going on. And so the guy, in this fit of rage, just screams at the top of his lungs, I don't have to take this. You people are ridiculous. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my gun, and we're going to come back and settle this. And it's quiet. The entire store just went silent because you could hear this everywhere, just echoed throughout the whole place. And it's just tense. So the guy goes to storm out, and the wife doesn't go with him. She just kind of stays there. My assumption is her intention was to apologize and try to diffuse the situation. But the guy goes to storms over to the entrance doors instead of going around the wall, and smack right into him and falls flat on his ass. So at this point, everyone who's perfectly quiet and watching what's happening up front sees him walk right into the wall, fall flat on his ass, and everyone starts laughing. The cashiers, the customers at the front, the 6 people waiting in line for service, the managers, nobody cannot laugh at this guy. So this, of course, makes him just 10 times more furious. His face is just red, and he gets up and literally kicks the doors. Full on, you would see in a movie, kicks the doors open. Luckily, he kicked the metal and not the glass, so the doors are breakaway, and they just come off. They just come off the track, and so they fold it out. Well, he goes over to kick the other set of doors. Well, for fire escape reasons, the other set of doors were the motion sensor was turned on. So if you went out the exit and went to the entrance doors, it would open up. So he goes to kick the entrance doors open, and it opens, and it falls flat on his face. So cue the second round of the entire show because by this point, after the silence, the screaming, and the laughing, the people in the back of the store come up to see what's going on. So everyone's lined up in the window, watching this guy just fall on his face, and the thing I felt the worst about was his poor wife. Dear God.
She's I married an idiot.
She's like, I'm really sorry. He really didn't mean it. But please don't call the police. And then she shuffled to the exit doors around the wall, and they met in the car and left. And it's one of those just perfect karma stories.
Yeah, he deserved every bit of that.
And it could have ended up in cops, and instead ended up in complete shame.
Well, yeah, he's not going to come back into that.
See, they don't need fiction. This is why podcasts fucking rule. Well,
I need to pick up Molly
we need to go quit up this thing, and thank you all for participating.
Now you're playing with podcast.
Tatton and I would like to thank our guests, Cory and Rebecca. We'd like to thank the listeners for listening, and we especially want to thank the judges for listening to our podcast. I think it's pretty damn good. I hope you guys do too. And we'll definitely do more whether or not we win. So see you next time on Now You're Playing with Podcast.